Today, more witnesses taking the stand in the trial of former high school athlete accused of murdering another teenager at a Texas track meet. Karmelo Anthony, he's claiming self-defense. Prosecutors, however, are calling the stabbing death of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf a senseless murder. He was stabbed in the chest after a confrontation began between the two. Now it's up to the jury to decide exactly what happened on that fateful day, April 2nd, 2025. News Nation's Mill Hayes has more from the courtroom. Mills, and there was testimony today on a Saturday. What did we learn?
That's right, Hannah. The state of Texas rested their case this afternoon, and then the defense then began bringing up their witnesses. So Karmelo Anthony, he is charged with the murder of Austin Metcalf, whose track teammates describe him as a leader who would stick up for others. But the two teens, they went to two different high schools, but they were at a track meet last April when an argument happened over seating, and Anthony stabbed Metcalf with a pocket knife in the chest. And Anthony claims that he acted in self-defense.
The first moments after the violence were filled with confusion. A high school track meet, a place where families gathered to cheer and teenagers chased personal records, transformed into the scene of an unimaginable tragedy. Coaches shouted for students to move away. Spectators struggled to understand what had happened. First responders rushed toward the chaos as frightened athletes stood frozen, realizing that a day meant for competition had become the beginning of a criminal case that would dominate headlines across the country. Within minutes, emergency crews were fighting to save the life of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. Despite their efforts, he died from a stab wound sustained during an altercation at the meet. The loss sent shockwaves through the local community and quickly became national news, not only because of the victim's age, but because the incident had unfolded in front of dozens of students, coaches, and spectators. Police soon arrested another 17-year-old, Karmelo Anthony, at the scene. Investigators began piecing together witness accounts to understand how an argument between two teenagers had escalated into a deadly confrontation. The tragedy immediately sparked grief, anger, and countless unanswered questions. As details slowly emerged, the case became the subject of intense public discussion, with many people debating what had happened, why it happened, and what justice should ultimately look like. Months later, another twist captured national attention. Reports surrounding Karmelo Anthony's legal strategy and the possibility of an appeal reignited public interest, prompting renewed debates across social media and news outlets. Supporters and critics alike dissected every court filing, every legal motion, and every public statement. Yet behind the headlines remained a painful reality that no legal proceeding could erase. A young man had lost his life, another faced the possibility of spending years behind bars, and two families found themselves forever connected by a single devastating moment. As this story spread across television broadcasts, podcasts, and online discussions, emotions often ran ahead of verified facts. Rumors circulated almost as quickly as official court documents. Claims about evidence, motives, and legal developments flooded the internet, many of them unsupported or misleading. Separating established facts from speculation became increasingly difficult, making careful examination of the case more important than ever. This documentary follows the verified timeline surrounding the death of Austin Metcalf, the prosecution of Karmelo Anthony, and the legal proceedings that followed. Where information comes directly from court records or official statements, it will be presented as fact. Where public claims remain unverified or disputed, they will be identified as such. The goal is not to sensationalize a tragedy, but to understand how a split-second confrontation evolved into one of the most closely watched criminal cases involving teenagers in recent years. Before we continue, if you appreciate carefully researched true crime stories that focus on verified evidence instead of internet rumors, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Cold Case Files, and turn on notifications so you never miss another investigation. Because, as you'll soon discover, understanding what happened that day requires going far beyond the viral headlines. And the deeper investigators looked, the more complicated the story became. The tragedy that unfolded at the Frisco track meet did not begin with violence. It began with two teenagers whose lives had followed very different paths, but crossed on a spring afternoon that neither family would ever forget. Austin Metcalf was known by friends and coaches as a dedicated student athlete. He embraced competition, valued teamwork, and looked forward to the opportunities that lay ahead. Like many teenagers, his days revolved around school, sports, and spending time with those closest to him. Few could have imagined that an ordinary track meet would become the final chapter of his life. Karmelo Anthony was also a high school student with athletic ambitions. Before the incident, there was no public record suggesting he was widely known outside his local community. After his arrest, however, every aspect of his background became the subject of public scrutiny. As investigators worked to establish exactly what happened, social media quickly filled with opinions, many of them unsupported by evidence. The challenge became separating verified facts from speculation. According to investigators, an encounter between the two teenagers escalated within moments, ending in a fatal stabbing. The precise circumstances surrounding that confrontation became central to the criminal case and later court proceedings. As prosecutors and defense attorneys prepared their arguments, the public debate only intensified, with questions about intent, self-defense, and accountability dominating online conversations. Before we continue, if you appreciate factual true crime stories that separate evidence from rumor, remember to like this video, subscribe to Cold Case Files, and turn on notifications for future investigations. As emotions continued to rise nationwide, investigators knew the next stage would depend not on internet speculation, but on physical evidence, witness testimony, and the facts collected from one devastating afternoon. In the days that followed, investigators turned their attention to the moments leading up to the fatal encounter. A track meet is normally filled with movement, excitement, and hundreds of people spread across the venue. That environment made reconstructing the timeline both challenging and essential. Detectives interviewed students, coaches, school officials, and spectators, comparing their accounts to determine how a brief confrontation escalated into a deadly act. According to court documents and investigators, the interaction between Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony began near a team area during the competition. Witnesses described a disagreement that developed rapidly. While there have been countless claims online about what was said and how each teenager reacted, many of those accounts remain unverified. What is established is that the confrontation lasted only moments before Austin suffered a fatal stab wound. As forensic teams processed the scene, every piece of evidence became critical. Investigators documented the location, collected physical evidence, and worked to preserve witness statements before memories could fade. Detectives also reviewed available videos and photographs taken at the event, knowing that even a few seconds of footage could help clarify the sequence of events. Outside the investigation, public attention intensified. Social media users began forming conclusions almost immediately, often relying on incomplete information. Some portrayed the case as straightforward, while others insisted there were details still hidden from public view. Law enforcement, however, continued emphasizing that conclusions would ultimately rest on evidence presented in court, not online speculation. With emotions running high and both families facing unimaginable circumstances, prosecutors prepared to build their case. The next phase would move beyond the crime scene itself and into a courtroom, where every witness, every forensic finding, and every decision made in those critical moments would come under intense legal scrutiny. As investigators completed their initial work, the focus shifted from the crime scene to building a case that could withstand scrutiny in court. Detectives organized witness statements, forensic findings, and other evidence to establish a clear timeline of the events that led to Austin Metcalf's death. Every detail mattered because the outcome would depend on what prosecutors could prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and how the defense responded. According to authorities, Karmelo Anthony remained at the scene after the incident and was taken into custody by responding officers. Investigators continued interviewing those who had witnessed the confrontation, comparing accounts to identify where they agreed and where they differed. Like many high-profile cases, some recollections varied, making it important to rely on physical evidence alongside eyewitness testimony. The investigation also unfolded under extraordinary public attention. As news spread nationwide, online discussions exploded with theories about motive, intent, and possible legal defenses. Some posts claimed to reveal hidden evidence or inside information, but many of those claims were never supported by official records. Court filings and statements from law enforcement remained the most reliable sources as the case progressed. For Austin's family, every new development was another painful reminder of the day their lives changed forever. They mourned the loss of a son, brother, teammate, and friend while preparing for the long legal process ahead. At the same time, Karmelo Anthony's family faced the reality that his future would now be decided in court, where every action from that afternoon would be examined in detail. As prosecutors finalized their strategy and the defense prepared its response, the courtroom became the next battleground. The evidence gathered over weeks of investigation would soon be tested before a judge and jury, where the pursuit of justice would enter its most consequential stage. As the case moved through the court system, every hearing drew intense public attention. Reporters filled the courtroom, legal analysts debated the evidence, and social media continued to amplify every new filing and development. Yet beneath the headlines, the court's responsibility remained the same: to evaluate the evidence presented under the law rather than the opinions circulating online. Prosecutors argued that the evidence supported the charges against Karmelo Anthony, relying on witness testimony, physical evidence, and the investigative timeline assembled after the incident. The defense, meanwhile, challenged aspects of the prosecution's interpretation and pursued the legal arguments available to their client. Like many criminal cases, both sides sought to present the facts in a way that supported their respective positions, leaving the court to determine which arguments were most persuasive. As legal proceedings continued, reports about a possible appeal and other post-trial legal strategies generated widespread discussion. It is important to note that an appeal is not a new trial or a declaration of innocence. Instead, it is a legal process in which a higher court reviews whether significant legal errors may have affected the outcome of the original proceedings. Any claims about the ultimate success of an appeal remain speculative until ruled upon by the courts. If you appreciate carefully researched true crime stories that focus on verified facts instead of internet rumors, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Cold Case Files, and turn on notifications so you never miss a future investigation. For both families, the legal battle represented only one part of a much larger tragedy. Regardless of the outcome of future appeals or court motions, nothing could undo the irreversible events that unfolded during that track meet, leaving a community forever marked by one devastating afternoon. As the legal proceedings continued, the emotional weight of the case extended far beyond the courtroom. Every hearing brought renewed attention to a tragedy that had already changed countless lives. For investigators, prosecutors, and defense attorneys, the focus remained on the legal process. For the families, however, each court date reopened wounds that had never truly healed. The death of Austin Metcalf became a painful reminder of how quickly a single confrontation can alter the future of everyone involved. Friends, classmates, and teammates continued to remember him as someone with goals, ambitions, and a life that ended far too soon. Memorials and tributes reflected the lasting impact he had on those who knew him, while his loved ones faced the difficult task of moving forward without him. At the same time, Karmelo Anthony's family confronted an entirely different reality. As the criminal case unfolded, they watched a teenager's future become tied to a legal battle that attracted nationwide attention. The intense media coverage and constant online commentary added another layer of pressure, often blurring the distinction between verified court records and public speculation. The case also sparked broader conversations about youth violence, conflict resolution, and school safety. Many question how a disagreement at a school sporting event could escalate so quickly, and whether anything could have prevented the tragedy. While opinions differed, there was widespread agreement that two families had suffered life-changing consequences. As attorneys continued preparing for the next stage of the proceedings, the public waited for further legal developments. Whether through additional hearings, appeals, or future court rulings, the case remained far from over. One thing, however, was already certain. The events of that day would continue to leave a lasting mark on the community long after the courtroom lights dimmed. Long after the emergency vehicles left the track meet and the courtroom sessions ended for the day, the effects of the case continued to ripple through the community. Schools, athletic programs, and families were forced to confront difficult questions about safety, accountability, and how quickly a routine event could turn into an irreversible tragedy. For many students who witnessed the incident, the memories of that afternoon remained impossible to erase. Austin Metcalf's family continued honoring his memory while navigating an overwhelming sense of loss. Friends and teammates remembered him not for the headlines that followed his death, but for the person he was before the tragedy, a young man with aspirations, relationships, and a future that ended far too soon. Community tributes reflected both grief and a determination to ensure he would not be remembered only as the victim in a widely publicized criminal case. Meanwhile, the legal process surrounding Karmelo Anthony remained the focus of continued public attention. Court filings, procedural developments, and reports about potential appeals fueled fresh waves of discussion. However, until courts issue formal rulings, any predictions about the final outcome remain speculative. The justice system often moves slowly, and significant legal questions can take months or even years to resolve. Beyond the legal arguments and media coverage lies a deeper lesson. A confrontation lasting only moments permanently changed the lives of everyone involved. One family continues mourning a son they can never bring back, while another faces the uncertainty of an ongoing legal battle. No court decision can fully restore what was lost. As the case continues through the justice system, its legacy serves as a sobering reminder that decisions made in seconds can carry consequences that last a lifetime, leaving an entire community searching for answers that may never feel complete. As the final chapter of this story is written, one truth remains impossible to ignore. A single confrontation changed countless lives forever. What began as an ordinary day of competition ended in the death of Austin Metcalf, a young man whose future was cut short, and in the arrest of Karmelo Anthony, another teenager whose own future became uncertain through the criminal justice system. Whatever legal proceedings continue, including any appeals, they cannot erase the devastating reality that two families will carry the consequences of that afternoon for the rest of their lives. Cases like this often become larger than the facts themselves. Headlines compete for attention, social media rewards the most dramatic claims, and rumors spread faster than verified information. But the responsibility of true crime is not to amplify speculation. It is to examine the evidence, acknowledge what is known, and be honest about what remains uncertain. That is the only way to respect those whose lives have been forever altered. The lasting impact of this case extends beyond a courtroom. It serves as a reminder of how quickly anger can escalate, how fragile life can be, and how every decision made in a matter of seconds can echo for years. As future legal developments unfold, they will continue to be judged by the courts based on evidence and the law, not by public opinion alone. If you believe in factual, respectful true crime storytelling, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, subscribe to Cold Case Files, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next investigation. Before you go, we'd like to hear your thoughts. How do you think high schools and communities can better prevent conflicts from escalating into irreversible tragedies like this one? Share your perspective respectfully in the comments below.